The first six Indiana Jones books were written by Rob McGregor, who previously wrote an adventure book called The Crystal Skull. It's kind of ironic that they pegged a Crystal Skull guy to write an Indiana Jones book 17 years before Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Argo Font Book Review, Argo Font Book Review.
It's 1920. Indiana Jones is graduating from college with his jazz-loving gangster friend, Jack Shannon. Every year, the college forces its students to celebrate Founders Day in honor of George Washington and the other founders of America. Indy doesn't like this because colleges should be about free speech and questioning authority. So he dresses up four mannequins like George Washington and his friends, then he hangs them from lampposts to show Washington should have been killed as a traitor. I thought Indy was a smart guy, but he seems legitimately surprised when his prank is taken seriously. He only avoids criminal charges thanks to the interference of Professor Ted Conrad. The Indiana Jones hates George Washington stuff is about 20 to 30 pages long. I thought it was an odd way to start the book. That doesn't seem like something Indy would do, and it has little to do with the rest of the story. I'd recommend just completely cutting that section. The book starts for real 2 years later. Indy's in Paris, France, getting a PhD in ancient languages. He takes a Greek archaeology class with Professor Dorian Bellakamis because she's really good looking and he wants to date her. That's right, Indiana Jones only became an archaeologist because the professor was hot. Now see, that seems way more in character for Indiana Jones than pretending to kill George Washington. Indy is upset when she doesn't return his affections, and at no point does the book address the fact that it is hugely inappropriate for a professor to date a student. The book also ignores the fact that Dorian is probably at least 10 years older than Indy. Professor Dorian gives a lecture about Delphi, Greece. In ancient times, a woman named Pythia gave prophecies there. She would breathe in smoke from the ground, then go into a trance. 2 days ago, there was an earthquake at Delphi. This opened up a crevice with a stone tablet inside. Dorian has been chosen to excavate the tablet, even though there must be other archaeologists who are living far closer to Delphi than she is. She picks Indy as her assistant. Before leaving, Indy meets up with Shannon and Conrad, who just happen to be in Paris. About a week later, they'll realize Indy is in danger and they rush to Delphi to warn him. Indy also meets his ex-girlfriend Madeleine, a squeaky-voiced airhead who's now dating British playboy Brent. They also go to Delphi a week later, not because they're worried for Indy, because they're bored and have nothing better to do. On the train ride to Greece, Dorian silently plots to herself. She thinks Indy will be perfect for the trap she set up. She notices someone named Farnsworth is following her. She decides to take care of him. Indy half notices what's going on. He convinces himself everything's fine. Dorian didn't just kill a man by throwing him off a train. The same thing happens when two men chase them in Athens. Indy tells himself those men were just looking for a ride, that's all! Indy and Dorian engage in adult activities multiple times. It's explicit enough that parents won't want their little kids to read this book. There's also a handful of swear words in the book. Dorian secretly meets with the main villain of the book, her longtime boyfriend, Alex Mandraki. It's hinted that their secret plans involve the King of Greece, who will visit Delphi next week. Readers meet another group with secret plans. 3 villagers are part of the Order of Pythia, which has protected the secrets of the Oracle of Delphi for centuries. They believe it is now time to reopen the Oracle, with Dorian as the new Pythia. Just like in ancient times, vapors are coming out of the crevice. The vapors last for 12 minutes, and the gap between vapors increases by 6 minutes every time. I saw one reviewer complain the book spends far too much time charting out the appearance of the vapors, and I can't really disagree with that criticism. Indy thinks someone should breathe the vapors to see what they are. They have a failed attempt to get a goat to breathe the vapors. Dorian decides to test out the vapors herself. She and the other archaeologists enter the cave. Haha, just kidding. Dorian goes to breathe the vapors by herself. So if anything happens, no one will be there to witness it. What was she thinking again? Dorian's hair stands out. She starts wailing incoherently before falling unconscious. It takes her days to recover. The villagers accept this as proof that Dorian will be the next Pythia. The book's prologue features the next scene, where Indy is lowered into the crevice on a rope. His job is to remove a tablet from a wall. The villagers try to kill him by cutting the rope. Indy survives for a while by holding on to the tablet. He eventually falls, but it's okay. He lands on a ledge that no one knew was there. The ledge has a black, cone-shaped stone. The villagers recognize it as the legendary stone known as the omphalos. There's a big reception for the king. Indy learns Conrad and Shannon were kidnapped by Alex. Indy follows the villains to their cave hideout. If this was a movie, Indy would stage a daring rescue. Instead, he hides near the entrance and hopes the bad guys will leave on their own. It's so unexciting that Indy falls asleep while he's waiting. Indy is captured the next day, and he talks with his friends for a bit. Dorian and Alex finally reveal their evil plan. They're going to kill the king and frame Indy for it. If Indy doesn't cooperate, they will kill his friends. I could poke holes in their plan. Really, they don't need Indy's cooperation in order to frame him. There aren't any witnesses. It would be a lot easier if they framed someone else. Like someone who lives in Delphi, not a random linguistics student in France. And of course, there was no need for Dorian to seduce Indy in order to get him here. The next day, the king visits the crevice. Dorian turns into Pythia and warns of danger. Indy doesn't get a chance to kill the king, because the villagers attack. Indy helps save the king's life, and the villagers fall to their deaths. Dorian promises to help Indy save his friends. She says to meet back at the crevice at 8:38. It's a trap! She shows up with a gun, ready to kill everyone. Again, Dorian turns into Pythia, and the villagers come out of nowhere to attack Indy. Gunshots are fired, but no one's killed. Dorian forces Indy to get the omphalos stone. Both Indy and Dorian have visions of the future when they touch the omphalos. Maybe it's real! Then again, maybe not. Dorian says she was faking all of her Pythia trances. She offers to reopen the temple with her as Pythia and Indy as her translator and lover. They could control the world as the all-seeing oracle of myth. I can't tell if this was Dorian's real plan all along, her backup plan, or if she made it up just now. Time for the grand finale. Indy and his friends steal Alex's car and escape, while soldiers shoot at them. They drive to the capital and get past a roadblock by rolling sideways off a cliff. They reach the palace where they're almost crushed by a tank. Indy tells everything to the king. The king arranges for Indy to go back home, where Indy donates the omphalos to a museum. There's a brief scene where Indy tries to say goodbye to Dorian. Both Dorian and Alex are shot and killed, because they're the villains, and the villains always die at the end of these stories. The end. Post-book follow-up. I thought this book was kind of interesting the first time I read it. There are multiple groups with secret murder plans. That's a classic Indiana Jones setup. The book creates suspense by only revealing part of the secret plans. I was eager to read the rest of the book, find out the rest of Dorian's evil plan and how Alex tied into it. That said, I was a little disappointed when the full plan was revealed. It probably should have been revealed 50 pages earlier, but that might have ruined the villager storyline. I think the villager storyline needed a rewrite. As it is, they mostly exist so there can be occasional action scenes where someone tries to kill Indy. This book is surprisingly light on action for Indiana Jones. The villagers don't attack him until 40% of the way through. At the halfway point of an Indiana Jones movie, you'd expect him to have gone through at least 3 death traps, and to have met the main villain face to face. Not in this book. Now that I think about it, did Indy ever come face to face with Alex? I think they meet each other for the first time at the end. The pacing seems slower than it is because Indy is more of a passive character. He mostly follows Dorian's orders. It makes sense because he's still a student, but the book would have been better served if he was more take charge. I can't imagine the Indiana Jones of the movies ignoring the attempted murder and mystery for days in favor of sitting near a crevice and waiting for vapors to appear. Another problem is the setting. Most of the book is the cave and the hotel at Delphi. Indy keeps going back and forth between the two. There should have been more variation to the scenes, or maybe the cave scenes should have been combined. My final complaint is that I don't know why Madeleine and Brent are in this book. They easily could have been removed. Overall, I did not like this book as much as I thought I would. It's interesting to see Indy's first adventure, and it definitely has some good elements, like the mythological factors and the femme fatale. It's not as good as the movies. If they were to make this book into a movie, it would need a hefty rewrite. I think that's my main problem with the book. It's a movie tie-in that's not enough like the movies. I give Indiana Jones number 1, Peril at Delphi, a 3 out of 10.